I don't need to be famous either. I didn't, do my face.
I don't want to be famous either.
Coverage in the last 6 months. I don't need it.
Yeah, you've been popular.
Hi everybody, we're here at Slatterly Park. We've got 3 lovely people here joining me, and we're just kind of talking about the park referendum and the lovely community garden over there. I'm going to flip the screen so you can see the community garden past this really awesome artwork. How do I flip the screen? Right there. Slatterly Community Garden and that awesome horse. I miss the fish. The fish was pretty cool.
The horse is cool, though.
The horse is cool too, but yeah. Right, yeah, that's how Art for Trails works. It's pretty neat. They just kind of come and go. Yeah, it gives everybody a chance to experience the artwork. So we were talking about the park referendum and how sales tax would be preferable to property tax, because then everybody shares the burden, but certainly not now. Instead, we should all share the burden by helping the park department out and doing our share to keep our beautiful parks going the way they're going.
Well, it'd be nice to be able to do some small, simpler things. For a couple of years, we've been asking to do some simple repairs to the playground over there.
Mm-hmm.
And just to make it safer.
Yeah.
Because there's, it was built in the 90s or something.
Right.
It's just got
Right.
predictable issues.
Yep.
And there's some parents we know in the neighborhood who'd like to bring their kids here more if they could.
Mm-hmm.
But the response we tend to get on that is, we can't afford to replace it now, and which is not what we're asking.
You're asking for a set time and a commitment to replace it, and when. You're not on the screen.
Oh, that's
by
okay.
the way. Do you want to be on the screen?
For just at least repairs to the bits that are, actively, a problem.
Right. Yeah.
Paint or sanding or whatever needs
Right.
to happen.
Right.
But we seem to get the message that either we replace or we remove. And we're like, we don't want you to remove it.
Yeah.
But there has to be some kind of middle ground on stuff like that
Right.
isn't so expensive and can at least do something.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I also think a lot of emphasis is put on areas of our city that generate more money, the golf courses, the hockey at Graham Arena, and those things, on active recreation. And we have a large percentage of our population that are older that might enjoy more passive type of things, and I think they fail us in that area. I mean, yeah, we walk the trails and things like that, but I think they could do more.
It does make sense to put more money into those things that give you, an economic boost up, but you can't disregard the other things as well. Like you were saying earlier, you've got to make sure all of everything is maintained first before you got to make the cake before you can frost it.
This is why our neighborhood took the initiative to beautify the bridge and even beautify the sign over here, which was demolished because of a vandalism.
Oh, right.
We're going to get it for another year and a half, another year, apparently.
I've been meaning to ask if we could get like a temporary vinyl one printed, just,
I suppose, yeah. I would think that'd be a great question. You could email your, who's your park commissioner? Linnea Archer?
We have a new, I'm sorry.
Who's your,
There's a new Kaya something.
Yeah.
oh, is it Kaya Ingvi?
Yeah.
That sounds right.
Okay, she's ours over at Eastside.
Yeah.
She's great. She's very approachable. She responds really well. She's a great park commissioner. And yeah, I would think that the park would approve that as long as it was mounted securely and no one could get hurt. And I don't know that the city would pay for it, but certainly if you put in a request, I know that FedEx has banners that you can print really inexpensively, and you can hook a banner up, a 3x5 banner. So yeah, I would send an email to Kaya about that. Kaya, are you listening? Slatterly Park wants their sign back.
Is she on there?
No, I don't know that she is. This is only my second time doing this now, so I'm not really not terribly good at this.
I forgot.
Forgot what?
I didn't put a thing.
What thing?
Yes.
Oh.
I have another question.
Yes, go Doris. Doris has another question. I'm gonna point the camera at you, and you can ask it all on your own. I'll bring the camera in. Doris has another question for me. You don't want it any closer? Okay, all right. Doris is asking another question.
How would you respond to more park and ride lots popping up in neighborhoods like the one at the Kmart vacant lot? there was no consideration for our neighborhood, safety, children, and so forth on that 4-3 vote that gave Mayo exactly what Mayo wanted. And it can happen anywhere.
You're right. It can happen anywhere, but I think Mark did his due diligence in supporting here and voting no.
Fantastic.
Yep. And I when I stood up that night in March, I was going the same way with you guys, trying to defend you. We don't need another park and ride right there. Instead, we need to get going on the transit system and stop doing little stopgap measures, and we need to just invest heavily and do the right thing at the right time so that we can get it all done. And the larger transit system, and the neighborhoods need to stay neighborhoods. So yeah.
And Mayo needs better long-range planning for their parking for their employees.
They just finished with their initial 5 years of their plan, so we should be actually seeing something coming out, I would assume, by August or September.
I'll be interested to see what happens actually with all of the people who are going to be moving to permanent telework that weren't before.
Can I put you on camera? No. Oh, that's right.
I mean, just if they're having, however many tens of thousands of people who are, going to be permanently or mostly permanently working from home now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If that was for the nursing staff at
It's
St.
not.
Mary's, that's not gonna.
No, the people who can telework, communications people
Right,
and
right.
IT people. And,
Right.
I mean, that's still a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering what the effect that will be on parking.
Yeah, I do too. I'm sure Mayo and DMC are all they've got to have a study going now. I don't know about it, but they've got to have a study going now that's monitoring the traffic changes since COVID, and wow, how can we save money by keeping these people at home, and is the output the same? And yeah, I'm sure their statistics people are working on that.
Continue to pay rent on that lot to Kane Garage in the meantime?
You mean are they being held accountable for the space that they're renting? Yeah, I would assume so. So they're essentially losing money, I suppose, now because people aren't paying for that parking.
My other question with that then is,
You got good balance.
what do you foresee as a workable plan for that whole waterfront area down there, which includes Ampey and Kmart and the whole shebang down there?
So Doris asked, what do I foresee with the whole shebang down there on the waterfront, the 61 plus acres? And I actually really am hoping that it can stay one piece, so that the city can develop a plan, sort of like they did with Country Club Manor so long ago, sort of like what they did when they laid out other plats. They established plans for a particular area and designed, but I want that to be with high community input, because it's a neighborhood, and I believe it should stay a neighborhood, and it should stay green space. I almost, in a way, picture Soldiers Field East, or Soldiers Field and then Graham East, something to honor the history of the town. But our city is so lopsided downtown. All of the building height is west of Broadway. A lot of the downtown green space is west of Broadway, and I think we can balance that out just kind of from a bird's eye, kind of a drone geospatial kind of a view. Not that we need that, but that's a great spot to put in, I think, some mid-rise towers like Park Towers or Fontaine, clustered sort of close together, but not too close together, so everybody can have nice circulation and nice light coming in their buildings, and have a meandering street going through there. And whether that street goes to a new 6th Street bridge or not, I tend to be against a new 6th Street bridge. I think that's an expense. That we just don't need to spend. Yeah.
And especially to move traffic. I mean, if you want to move bicycles and pedestrian to meet up with the trail system that goes there is one thing. But to put a bridge there will be a disaster to our neighborhood.
And there's ways to engineer it so that it wouldn't be, but I think that space would be nicer with a meandering road from 9th Street all the way up to 4th, instead of breaking it up, east-west in the middle there. And lots of green space, and of course I'm really big on fixing the infrastructure so that we can somehow retain a lot of that water and let it infiltrate versus just dispensing right into the Zumbro River. I think that's really important, and that's mostly what I got up to talk about in March.
Would it be a good place for a library? Leave the library there.
I don't know. There is a lot of space. I really don't want to see the library move, quite frankly.
Well, I mean, they're talking it's not big enough and branch libraries and everything.
Yeah,
They can't enlarge that one.
yeah. I'd rather see branch libraries than having the library move. I remember when it was built in '95, and I'm sure you do too.
I remember all the libraries that have
Yep,
been built.
yeah, yeah. I don't remember the first one. That one I don't think I ever went
The
in.
one that's at the Mayo Medical School now.
Yeah,
Goes back a long way.
yeah, that does. I remember the other one on Broadway. That was fun. Sort of dark.
The old Penny's building.
Yeah, yeah, yep.
Did you have any questions about the transit? No?
So has anybody bought Ampy?
No. Nobody's bought Ampy. There's sort of some talk about the question. Everybody is, has anybody bought Ampy? And the answer is no. Hi, Adam. No. I think there's an owner that's interested in buying it, so that they would perhaps look at keeping that building intact and then kind of assessing whether it's worth it to kind of do some retrofitting, refashioning, repurposing of the building, which I have to tell you is a huge concern to me. I look at the Post Bulletin building that's just come down, that mountain of waste that's going to the Calmer landfill, and then the Seneca stuff that's going to the Calmer landfill, and then we have an Ampey building. And so I'm just wondering, when that Calmer landfill was planned,
Wasn't planned for that.
I don't think it was planned for that. And I think, so where will the next landfill go? And that really bothers me. I'm just thinking there's got to be a way to repurpose these buildings. We've got some really smart, intelligent, innovative thinkers in this town. And
And
stop.
that's actually
Yeah.
something we're going to talk about at our neighborhood meeting next week.
Yeah.
Is our member on that commission or board or that
Yep.
group
Yep.
is going to be sharing an update with the neighborhood, and they've been talking about a lot of that stuff.
Well, and with the technology and everything we have, and if Game Garage, the builder that we're told he is, you wonder what even could be done with the Kmart building.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they have to do a safety assessment and see if it's
I don't even know if did they ever check for mold after the flood in '78?
well, I think it had asbestos too.
Yeah.
Oh,
the
sure,
mill
yeah.
is full of asbestos.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's easy to. Yeah, that's easy to abate. It's time consuming and sensitive and expensive, but it's easy to do. Yeah.
No one said we filled the landfill.
Yeah.
Well, and with newer buildings like the Post Bulletin, I mean, that's just pathetic. It really is.
You could have done some really neat stuff with that.
Wasteful society.
You have to understand the building also. To go up 20 stories, you have to have enough foundation underneath and the depth and the rock substrate underneath to be able to support a really tall building. And if it wasn't meant for that, you can't build on top of it. So I can understand, but do you have to take it all down? Can't you build on the side of it and you don't have to level it completely. You can be kind of creative with it,
You okay?
That was not good, but I think they're okay. Yeah. I usually hang around my neck. So we're talking buildings, we're talking community gardens, we're talking infrastructure.
So, what's your thoughts on?
Can I put you on camera?
Sure.
Sure. Caitlin will get out of the way.
So, what are your thoughts on getting people around town? Transit, bikes, cars, etc. I mean, I agree that in town is not the place for parking ride lots. They should be on the edge of town. But we also want people who live more than 2 blocks from work to be able to get to work.
Right, right.
And so what are your thoughts on how do we encourage that? What do we do to enable it? What sorts of things do we encourage?
Well, I think we've got to encourage people walking and biking. We certainly can bring the health factor up. In the wintertime, it's kind of scary with our walkways here and the ice that we have going on. But we need to ramp up our public transit system, I think. I'm sorry, I don't know your name. Nat. Okay, I'm Kelly. We need to ramp up our great bus system. Of course, there's the double whammy there of you've got to have enough people to pay for it to be able to ramp it up. So they've been working on a transportation study for that. They've been working on the transportation study for, I think, at least 10 years now, trying to get it kind of minimized down, keeping the traffic out of town, increasing bikes. But I think we need to have more satellite with shuttles. Could work. They should be all electric.
Why does ridership have to pay for transit?
Why does ridership have to pay for transit?
We don't make
Right.
drivers pay for roads.
Right.
We build roads because we need a road to go to wherever. Why not just decide that we're going to spend the money on buses
Well,
and then create the ridership?
I'm not necessarily arguing with you. I agree that maybe riders don't have to pay for transit, especially if transit is specifically for one particular use that doesn't necessarily involve the riders specifically. If the intent of the transit is specifically to get riders from point A to point B, and point A and B are tied together with one particular employer, that's different. But gas taxes and other taxes go to pay for our roads and other things. So the drivers do pay for that kind of infrastructure to be kept up. We do pay for that. So I think like,
In town, it's mostly property owners that pay for roads more than gas taxes.
well, yes. But like the point we were making about the referendum on the parks, property taxes are not the right way to go about it. I think it would be better to do a sales tax. That way we all share the burden across versus just being certain people that are using it or not using it.
But that's what I'm saying. Why not for transit? Why not shared costs? Why not put it on the general revenue?
That's what I think we should do. It needs to be shared. We all need to share that burden. Yeah. Unless, like I said, unless it's something like the Kmart lot, which is a shuttle. That's
An employer shuttles the whole
exactly
thing.
right.
You were commenting that you needed ridership before you could have to pay for the buses. I'm saying why not put the buses in first and pay for them in some way other than by the ridership. Eventually, I mean, obviously if they run empty for 20 years, there's no point in doing that. That's dumb.
Right.
But the thing is, it seems to me that if you want to get ridership, people need to know it's going to be there, so that it needs to be there long enough so that they start planning where they live based on it.
Yes.
So if you make a commitment like, we are going to fund this bus system for the next decade, here's the routes at a minimum, here's the schedule at a minimum, and we're going to run
every
that
15
bus,
minutes.
not, oh, well, there's low ridership on this one. That's fine. Maybe it's going to take you 5 years of low ridership before that bus route starts to pay for itself. Or maybe, I mean, we're seeing cities do it, maybe there's no fares for public transit.
Maybe, yeah, maybe. I think the key of what you're talking about, Nat, is that you've got to have a commitment from the city or the county or the state, whatever the organization is that makes the commitment to actually make this thing happen. They've got to have the capital in order to do it. And that, yeah, right, and that's got to be started first. So I'm all for finding the capital to do that, to kick it off and get us the public transportation. Yeah. And then you get the monies coming in from ridership and from the businesses. We're all going to share that burden. But money might not be there, and perhaps that's why it hasn't been started, but I'm all for getting it ASAP. Yeah. Do you have another one, Doris?
Oh, I sure do.
Awesome. Bring it on. Doris has another question, everybody.
Please respond to zoning changes that continue to be made in our neighborhoods, especially close to the downtown. An example of R2X zoning in Slatterly Park, north of 9th Street last year, which now allows 3 to 4, maybe, story apartments, high density in our neighborhood, which is mainly single-family homes. Would you support whatever planning and zoning seems to want to do in this respect? I now could have a behemoth structure next to me 5 feet from my little house
Yeah.
if my neighbors sold their property. And this, what a way to destroy a neighborhood. And it could happen in East Side, it's gonna happen to
Yep.
all the neighborhoods that are close to downtown. We're just probably the first of it.
Are you familiar with the Riverwalk building on East Center Street?
Yes.
Yes. That pretty much destroyed a couple of houses, or so the owners feel that way, and they've been for sale for quite some time. I've got two different answers for you, and you're going to like part of it and you're not going to like the other part. I actually went to I'm a contractor, I'm a builder, so I get the built environment, and as a landscape designer, I kind of see light and the way it travels across the sky and where plants need to go and when the shadows come in your house and when the sun enters.
I see that too.
Yeah, that's really important to me. So I don't like the way the R2X is set up right now. I personally think the buildings should be allowed to go a lot taller than just the 3 stories. I'm not in a neighborhood, but there's areas, if you just look at the map and you get out GIS and you can do the light trajectories and everything else, you can specifically you can look at specific areas where those buildings would work, and you can design a building with cutouts in it, or just change the height of it. You'd bring it in so that when the sun goes across the sky, for instance, next to Dr. Fleming's house where Riverwalk is, they left that huge facade so close to his property and so close to Center Street, the sun doesn't even come into their house after maybe 4:30 in the afternoon. They could have made that southeast corner of the building just 2 stories and pushed it back. There was also no consideration for when they went into their backyard and all those apartments up above. If they would have left the mature trees on the east side of that lot, no one could look down into their yard. So it's more than just the way the zoning is set up. It's about where can you do something taller, where should you keep something shorter, how many 40-unit buildings do we need in town? I don't believe that 40-unit buildings are going to be solving our housing issue. They're not. We need taller buildings. We need to stop the sprawl, and we need to build up our downtown core with respect to green space. I think that R2X zoning also ties in with the new tree ordinance. I'm not particularly happy with the new tree ordinance. I think it's not going to give our city the tree coverage that it's supposed to have. So part of the answer you like, part of the answer you don't. For instance, in that 61-acre lot between 9th and 4th Street, between Broadway and 3rd, that's a great space for 3, 4, maybe 5 of those mid-rise towers. It's great. The light's not going to be a problem. I think that transit should come up and down 3rd Avenue instead of on Broadway. Slowing it down, putting in medians, using NACTO guidelines, because that way everybody from Slatterly, at least that area off of 3rd, can access it. They don't have to walk all the way over to Broadway, and you do it all electric. So there's
On 3rd Avenue very much?
I'm on 3rd Avenue a lot. Yep, I go down 3rd Avenue a lot. I actually try and avoid Broadway like the plague, but yeah.
It's not at all on 3rd Avenue, I'm sorry. People can't get out of their driveways.
There's a lot of things with the driveways. Yeah, there's more driveways. Yep. But I think it's much more accessible for the riders then if you take it on 3rd Avenue.
So can I ask a different question?
Yeah, and I won't put you on camera.
Okay, thank you. I
Yeah,
just
you're
had a
welcome.
try today.
You're welcome. That's
So,
fine.
From talking to the mayor, I know that something she has been hoping to get going is a sort of city department or part of a department that is focused on building neighborhoods.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so kind of pulling our neighbors into the fold and maybe giving them a little more resource.
Yeah.
And what are your thoughts about that? And how do you think the city could work more effectively with neighborhoods?
I think not how can the city work more effectively with neighborhoods. The city should work more effectively with neighborhoods. I think Renee does a phenomenal job with our neighbors. She's a hard worker. She does a great job. I think she needs an office in the government center, and I think she should probably be given an assistant. I think neighborhoods are going to be the future of what we're doing in the city, the way we're seeing it grow. There are specific things about the neighborhoods that don't transfer to other neighborhoods. For instance, like Cimarron, they have completely different needs and issues and ideas and house lot sizes and square footage houses. Everything is completely different than we have down here in the core. And I think to have kind of this blanket way of treating everything is not right. I think we can be creative, and I think we can ask, you know, the individual neighborhoods what they want. And I think neighborhoods should have a lot more say in what's going on. Absolutely. As you all know, I'm the East Side president, right? And yeah, I've, you know, the park name change, but it's nice to get a consensus across the board from all the neighbors in a neighborhood, which will never happen, but to get people talking and communicating about stuff so that they can share with each other and learn together and become educated about what the issues are, that's what I think is key, Caitlin.
That's interesting that you say that, because almost 30 people went to the city council meeting from our neighborhood to talk about Park and Ride and to oppose it and give logical reasons why, from safety to biking to walking to children, and yet we still had a 4-3 decision on it. So tell me, the people sitting on the city council that voted for or opposing, only 3 of them. What about the other ones? Are they concerned about neighborhoods? Are they concerned about the safety of us? You know, without neighborhoods, the city is nothing as far as I'm concerned.
I agree completely. It's the neighborhoods that make the city.
They're
Yeah.
turned into neighborhoods. They can preach it in their campaigns and do all of that, but in reality, the vote doesn't show it.
I don't know. I don't know how affected those northeast neighborhoods, those northwest neighborhoods were by the Kmart lot. Probably not much at all. So their council members that brought their voice forward, you know, they can say what they want, but I know that Mark carried your voice forward, and I think that's what's key. But there's the whole working with people and collaborating thing. It's not just one councilman that can do the work. It's everybody having to work together for what's best. And
Like
yeah.
I said to Mr. Keene, are you more important about moving traffic and moving mail employees? Are you really more concerned about human lives, human beings, a neighborhood, and people? I mean, that's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
Who do you really care about?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Maybe that would be. Do you all use Polko? I think we could have a lot more Polko going on. I think we could be doing a lot more surveys and asking a lot more questions of the city's residents. But maybe that's a really, Doris, you kind of got me thinking, and I'm wondering about, you know, there's 4 candidates running, four seats that are open, right? 2, 4, 6, and the at-large position, right? So we're sort of not paying attention to 1, 3, and 5 right now. But maybe your question you just asked about the neighborhoods, maybe that needs to be asked of the other council members to see how they feel about this neighborhood question, because it's not to the newly elected to answer yes to that. We care more about the neighborhoods. It's up to all of them.
They all say they are concerned about the neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Are you aware of the telephone survey that's been done on the park referendum? I had a call the other day from a survey company that the city or somebody has hired to ask questions about our park system and would you support a referendum and on and on. I mean, I think it took at least 10 minutes, 12 minutes.
That was the survey that I was told about. So when all of the candidates were asked about the park referendum, I'm forgetting the agency that's doing that. I'm completely blanking on it right now. But yeah, that's a part of the whole survey to determine if that should be done. Yeah. Yep.
So where are you in sort of the range? Like, I understand a city councilor feeling that they should represent what the neighborhood wants and sort of be their voice. And I also understand the perspective of a city council person wanting to have their own independent vision. You know, and how do you see yourself finding balance there?
That's a hard one for me. That's a really interesting question because, I do have a lot of ideas that I'd like to see happen that I think would be good because it's sort of what I've done as a living for the last 20 plus years as a landscape designer. Clients hire me for my vision and I collaborate with them and work to implement what it is they need and, you know, using the resources that are available to have a good, sustainable outcome. But in this position, it seems to me like it's no different. You all are the clients, right? And I have to provide for you with what you want. So there's education on part. And I have to tell you, sometimes with my landscape design clients, I win and I get my way. But most of the time they get their way. But I usually... Well, exactly. But if there's a certain naivete about, you know, certain plants or a look of something and I can somehow educate them and show them a better way to do something, they might come around and we'd go with one of my ideas versus what they want. But that's the whole key of working with professionals and working with people in their skill set, is that you can use their recommendations and they can help to educate you and they can help to bring you along with what they see, and then that client's voice is, you know, the constituents can say, no, we don't like that. Go back to the drawing board. And this is that piece where I said, we don't need any outside consultants. Our community is wealthy enough with creativity and innovation. And I mean, I can think of Andy Masterpool, Patrick Sieb, Paul Sims is an architect. We got great architects here, Leslie McGrillivray. We got all kinds of really talented people that can do all that kind of stuff. So I see myself, I guess, as being an advocate, but also at the same time saying, you know, wow, have you thought of this? I think this might be a better idea. And also as a researcher, you know, going in to gather data and doing the research when that's my job, right? To inform you of some of the better choices that could be made, or don't go this direction.
Well, the people that they brought in on R2X were coming from Oregon or Washington or someplace like that. That whole R2X plan was designed by somebody about as far away from us as we can get.
So I have direct experience with this. The city of Lanesboro hired me and Randall Arndt to design a concept plan for them a couple of years ago. And during the process, it was a 3 to 4 month process. We brought in focus groups and we brought in people to comment. And the end result was one that we had a great concept plan that we had given them, but many of those pieces haven't come to fruition because there weren't the monies there to do it. It seems that concept plans can go that way more often than not when you bring in an external consultant and you don't use the voice of the people that are there that really truly understand. There was one thing that came out of that. The levee, for instance, next to the river, has a lot of mature trees on it. Well, if wind catches those trees and knocks them over, well, there goes your levee. So, you know, that's something straight across the board that many people that understand trees and water would say, you know, take the trees off the levee.
There's something to be said for fresh eyes and new ideas, but at the same time,
yes.
you know.
Yeah, there needs to be balance. So I'm really a proponent for using local native knowledge. We know what's going on here. We know what's going on here because we've been living here for a long time. And your voice, Doris, is certainly different than Caitlin's voice, but the two of you can understand each other because you're hyper local. You're right here in this neighborhood, and well, right, and I would expect that, but you guys
You told me not to use that mulch, and I didn't.
right, yeah. So yeah. Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. You're awfully quiet, Evelyn.
There's something I want to talk to you about, but I don't want to be on that.
Okay, I won't put you on camera. I'll just repeat your question if nobody can hear you.
With the neighborhoods organization having some say for about a neighborhood,
Mm-hmm.
we went through a lot of meetings and to keep R2 as our neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
And what do we get? R2X.
Yeah, the whole Envision Slatterly, are you talking about? Envision Slatterly?
Imagine Slatterly.
Imagine Slatterly.
Yeah, it does seem like
A lot of hours.
things go in fits and starts with engaging the neighborhood. It'd be nice if the city was more systematic about it, bring us along the whole way. You know, we're trying to lay some groundwork for that with some of the Kmart stuff, but it would be nice to have that be in a course in things like this.
Right.
You know?
Right. Yeah, I agree with you. I think we're sort of on the edge of a little shift here. I think the neighborhoods are going to become more important, especially where we're going to see a lot of change and a lot of growth. So East Side, Slatterly, Kutzke, those kinds of things. Kutzke's not growing. Historic Southwest isn't growing as much. I guess they are with Discovery that's going on, but that's all planned and it's pretty agreed upon. People are excited about that and jazzed about that coming in. But the changes we have coming on the east side of Broadway, that's very different. And sometimes I wonder if that's because historically there haven't been a lot of changes over here. It's all been on the west side. So is there just resistance because it's not happened and we've been left alone for so long? Or is it because all of a sudden, you know, we've become a real hot commodity because there's not much more you can do over on the west? It's been built up. So yeah, I think neighborhoods are going to become much more important. I think the trend is to go more local, more hyper-local, to get those questions answered and to find common ground, high buy-in with projects. I think that's very important. It also can induce some local flavor. You know, when I think about going down Marion Road a little bit to the Oak Terrace Parkside community, you could get some really neat local flavor down there with the high Latinx community that's there. So I think those are the kinds of things we're going to see as we kind of grow into what we've become. And you know, Mayo's pretty awesome. They take care of their employees. They're the largest employer in the state. They do an awful lot of good. They produce a lot of money for our city through taxes. I wouldn't say they've gotten too big for their britches in our community. I think they're still thumbs up, win-win in pretty much every way. But I think with DMC, we need to pull it back a little bit. And now that they've finished their initial 5-year, let's see what the next 5-year plan is that's coming out. I want to see some community engagement, a lot more community engagement, and how are we going to share the burden with them to make the city better, to get Mayo the employees that it needs, because the burden just isn't on them to make that happen. It's also on us to allow for that and offer our feedback for how we want that to happen.
Evelyn, remember when we did Imagine Slatterly? We talked, there's pages in there about what if and when Ampy moves out of town and the Kmart store goes 10, 12 years, whatever, how many years ago. We talked about that in that document back then, what we wanted to see way back then. And they paid no attention to that at all. Planning and zoning didn't even know it existed until we told them about it. When I met with,
Aaron?
the head man in planning and zoning,
Has he retired?
no.
So I guess that's key. I guess that's really the key, is to I don't know, check out your candidates and make sure that they are going to do what they're saying they're going to do, and don't listen to them. Go check me out on East Side. See what the people think about me on East Side. I know PJ's pretty prevalent here in Slatterly. Katrina's, pardon me?
Did you get R2X?
Yeah, we have R2X zoning coming in. In kind of a different way than you have it. Your neighborhood is pretty industrial heavy in the northwest section, right? You know, that 61-acre lot, that's really industrial heavy. We don't have any industrial heavy in East Side. We don't even have Olmsted OMC Hospital. It's technically on the south side of 4th Street, so that's Homestead, but it's right there by us. The only industrial type of thing we have, I think, is Rossi Auto Body.
That's on our side.
Yeah, yep, that's even on the other side of 4th Street. Yep. So we are really solid historic neighborhood, residential and green space parks. Your square miles is much larger than ours too. But you've got this tremendous green space. It sort of borders, kind of like, I guess our green space sort of borders a little bit too, but we've got a fair amount of green space in East Side. A lot of tree canopy like you have over here. So that's why I think the neighborhoods are so important, just because you've got things like that are going on that are really different between neighborhoods, how people move around, how they get their groceries, when they get their groceries, the traffic patterns, where the cut-throughs are, the timing of the lights. Yeah, when the birds start squawking or when they don't in the summer versus winter. And yeah, that local knowledge is really key, I think, for planners, and I think that's the way that things are going.
So is it etched in stone that Broadway is the commuter route?
I don't know. I don't know. I would think I think that might depend on maybe what happens with Ampey. Who knows?
Yeah,
I think
they have to widen 3rd Street and do a lot there to
yeah,
make that work.
yeah, right. I think the trajectory is for it to go there, but based on COVID, what's going on with the economy, and with what's been happening,
Maybe we can hope
I
that
have
we
no
don't
idea.
enough money to destroy Seneca Foods and the Ampey plant.
Well, here's a question that I think you talked about in the newspaper a little bit, but for me, this is actually kind of an important question for each of the candidates, which is, I think the question was about whether they saw their job as full-time or part-time. And, I mean, I'll lay it out there. I mean, Mark works, 50 hours a week at his job, and, I mean, I personally, I can't imagine it being part-time, but I'd love to hear the arguments if it
If
is.
you do a good job, how can it be part-time? Huh?
That's kind of how I feel about it. If you do a good job, how could it absolutely be part-time? I can't even imagine. I know what I do with East Side, and that's just one little neighborhood association. And with all the changes we have coming, and with what's going on with COVID, I just can't even imagine this being a part-time job. Did any of you happen to read the opinion that Barry Amadio wrote?
Tonight's paper.
Yeah. Did you read that?
She had an awful lot of statistics.
She did, and I think they were good statistics. I like statistics; they're good, but I also like some nice qualitative data too. And that's actually a really great question for the current council members and maybe the ones before them. Well, actually, just the current ones, because I think our city's changed so much in the last 15 years that previous ones might not even have kind of valid input on that. But I think if you went around and asked all the council members, do they feel that it's part-time or full-time? And I know they've kind of done that, but
I don't want anybody treating this like a hobby. I mean,
this isn't it. It maybe was a hobby 20, 30 years ago, but it is not a hobby anymore. I mean, there's the learning curve for any one of us that's going to be coming into this is so incredibly high. And I'm not aware of the input that the other candidates for Ward 4 have put in, but I've been a fixture at the city council meetings, whether it's online or in person, for almost the last 2 years. I've really tried to understand what's going on, what the changes are going to be, how the changes are, how the community's reacting, what my personal opinion of, oh boy, I wouldn't have voted that way, or oh yeah, that's great. Just kind of getting the feel for what it's going to be like, so I can familiarize myself with it. Did I want to run? Did I not want to run? And yeah, it's a full-time job. It's a full-time job. Now, do you need to take the benefit package that comes with it? Could the city save money for that? Sure. Do you have to take the salary that's being offered? I don't know. Can you put some aside for the ward? I don't know. Probably a question for the city attorney to answer. Again, pulling in an outside consultant, especially for something with raising the salaries, I guess it would make good sense, but there again, we've got that awesome Polco survey set up. And I mentioned this to Mark a couple of months ago. I bet if you polled the residents of what they think the council members should be making, I bet we'd get some hard answers pretty quickly.
Yeah, but
And
I don't think we get answers that are fair. I don't think we get the answers that make sense. We want people to be able to be on the council. I agree with you. It's absolutely, to do it right, it's a full-time position, which means we need somebody to be able to afford to
Have this be their
not
full-time
have
job.
another job. It needs to pay a sensible wage to where people are going to choose it, to where people with experience in education are going to choose it. It doesn't have to be the top paying job in town, not at all, but it needs to, I think pegging it to the median salary in town, median take home I should say, is very sensible. I don't see a problem with that. And if any individual doesn't need the money, there's nothing stopping you donating your salary. You don't need any special rules or any special exemptions, but I think if we want to make sure that we have both a talented and a representative city council, it should pay a sensible salary that looks something like what other people who work full-time are getting. It needs to cover somebody who maybe is a single parent and needs child care while they're working. There's no, so I don't see any problem with that. And of course it should have decent benefits. Again, it's a job. There's no reason there shouldn't be a sensible benefits package with it, particularly healthcare. But
right. Yeah, I tend to agree with all that. Obviously, the way it was gone about was not the best. Sort of like with the renaming of East Park to MLK Park. In the end, it was good. I think Nat, Polco might not divulge a whole slew of silly answers. I think we could shake it down into a decent bell curve that there might be a pretty good consensus on what might be good. I'm hopeful.
But I don't think that's a thing that ought to be set by consensus.
Right.
That's what I'm saying.
Exactly.
It's not that I think that the consensus would be completely off the wall. I just don't think that's how you should decide that kind of thing.
It's a data gathering tool.
Would you, it makes to me, it makes as much sense as polling the city for what the manager of McDonald's should make. Like, we may have opinions. They may even be very well considered opinions, but I'm not sure that's how they ought to set the wages.
That's fair. So what time do we have here?
It is almost 8.
Almost 8. Okay. All
And if
right.
they had just decided to, have them would just be effective for the next group of people who were elected.
Right. See, and this is where when you get community feedback, you can find out all kinds of really neat ideas that might not have been thought about by a smaller group that may have been making the decisions.
Gets it has earned it, sort of.
Doris, I see you've put your index cards away.
Yep, doing my backpacker.
Did we get through all your questions?
Oh no, I probably have more, but that's what I focused on.
Okay.
Kelly, what's your favorite color?
What's my favorite color?
Yes.
Oh, that sea foamy blue-green that you probably see me in too much. The color of the sea.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep, that's my favorite color.
I just know that Mark does a fantastic job and puts in more hours than probably anybody sitting in City Hall, because I know I have called him and talked to him on many occasions, and sometimes it's in a help me mode, and how can they do this type of thing, and he's always stood by us. He has been so supportive. we have won battles we would never have won without him.
Mm-hmm.
And I can give you a perfect example of that. The 6th Street Bridge.
Mm.
And all the controversies that were with it. But the crowning blow was that Mr. Freeze wanted bright cobalt blue railings on that bridge after everything was decided it was going to be black lights, black railing. And without talking to the committee, he just decided he had the power as the city engineer, and he changed it, just like that. Well, thanks to Mom and Mr. Cabengo, that did not happen. They were sent back to be repainted, I understand, to the tune of $40,000 because of Mr. Freeze. Should have taken it out of his salary, actually. So the bridge was more costly because of what he chose to do on his own after we had spent hours upon hours on collaboration. And things like this turn off a neighborhood,
Mm-hmm.
and it shows where there is power, where they think they have power, and they use it to not do what was supposed to be done.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
So what's something really important that you're looking forward to doing if you're elected?
Ooh, I'm kind of afraid to share that. You know I'm into urban agriculture, right? Yeah. If anybody's looked at my personal Facebook page, you know how much I'm into growing food and agriculture, and I still want to be a farmer when I grow up. Maybe a little bit.
Is farmland available?
Oh, yeah, and we need younger farmers on the land. Unfortunately, I'm about the age of the average farmer, 56. I think it's, what's the average age of a farmer now? 58 maybe? Yeah, so we're getting more young folks on the land, which is good. But I kind of ties in with what we were talking about earlier, the sprawl that we've got going on. I don't want to see any more of our row crop acreage taken up for housing. That's really, really bothering me. We have some of the best soils in the state here for growing food, and
That's why you want to build up.
yeah, increased density, but not everywhere. And there's places you can do it, and it's done well, and there's places it shouldn't be done. The Riverwalk's a great building. It fits a really awesome need. It just wasn't done correctly, and that's where the setbacks are important. No, you don't have a 20-foot setbacks with something like that. You have a 60-foot setback, or even an 80-foot setback. You give nice green space around it, so that it's something that's set off on its to look at, and it gives.
Fully rented?
I don't know if it's fully rented. Last summer, I think they were telling me it was pretty close. We've had a couple of our neighborhood meetings there. We try and share the love and have the neighborhood meetings in various places because we don't have businesses and gathering.
You have to pay them?
No, we don't. The organizations that we go with are very gracious and they share freely, and it's nice. It's nice. So that's my answer, Caitlin. I want to see the row crop acreage remain row crop acreage. And we've got an awesome Seneca freezer plant at 20th Street. And I'd like to see all of the veggies in the grocery stores come from food grown around here, processed at our very own Seneca plant. Just a little idea.
I think that can happen with our cold winters.
Oh, they're doing all kinds of neat things now with deep winter greenhouses and hoop houses. Yeah. Yep. And that's why you put the food into the freezer, and obviously canned food is cheaper. You don't have to pay for energy throughout the year to store it, whereas freezer food, you have to keep the electricity on. Or actually, we could just put it out in our backyards in a special critter-proof box. Maybe that's what Park and Rec could do, is get us a bunch of those bear boxes like they have where the bears are, and then we could store our food outside in the wintertime in a bear box. That was a joke, everybody. That was a joke.
I suspect they have bigger fish to fry.
I suspect they do too. Yeah. So are we at 8:00 yet? Can I stop this thing? People have been watching, and I can't even imagine how boring this was for viewers. It wasn't boring for me though. They've just been kind of looking at me. Thanks, everybody. We're going to end this meet the candidate at Slatterly Park. Thursday night, I am somewhere. Thursday night, I am I'm down at Parkside, right on Marion Road. So join me at Parkside if you want. We'll have water and snacks and some handouts, and from 7 to 8, and we'll do a Facebook Live again. So thanks for watching. Bye.